Hello and welcome to the Unofficial Controller Podcast, your weekly gaming podcast, episode 85, the best games of 2020. With me, George, and an extension to his parole, Tom. Game of the year to my best public convenience of the year. How's it going?
I'm doing well, mate. Thank you. You okay?
Yeah, this is the new Carey-Sherry version of you, obviously, since you were visited by some spectral apparitions over the Christmas period. Just a quick note before we move on. Bobby's not here for some family reasons, but he'll be joining us back again for the first show of 2021, which is great news. So it's my honour and privilege to welcome back, before he goes back to the New York State Penitentiary, Rikers Island, Tom.
The fee you've had to pay me for this episode, it's just made my Christmas. Might not have to work next year.
Well, you know, the podcast luckily is able to accumulate enough wealth where I don't have to work and you don't have to work, and I've got enough money to pay New York State your parole, which is considerable to say the least, just to get you another. So not only did you want a wage, you also wanted your parole paying, which was based on your list of crimes, which is exhaustive, was quite considerable. You're on tag, though, so you're no danger to any normal people out there. My little bit different rundown, we're going to talk about our Game of the Years 2020 on multiple platforms, and then we're going to slip into what you're hoping to play, because it's a short sort of in-between show. I'm deciding whether to open it with the Barry Norman film music, but I'm undecided. But the show cannot begin until Odders grips his empty selection box, cries at the lack of chocolate goodies inside, as I turn to you, Tom, and say, what have you been playing?
Well, over the current Christmas break, I've been thoroughly enjoying Cyberpunk 2077. Ooh. Now, let's get this out there straight away. If you own an Xbox Series X or S, or a PS5, if you own a PC, you just literally got nothing to worry about. Get this played, because you're missing out through the internet hate bandwagon, because it's just rolling over this game and squashing what is an absolutely phenomenal open world. And that's just after 8 hours of play. 8 hours of play got me to the title screen yesterday, or the flash up of the logo, and this is where the game begins. The intro just felt like I was playing the full game anyway.
Yeah, I didn't. May I interject there? Because I felt very held back and under the reins during that first 8 hours. I kept thinking, well, hang on a minute. I thought this was open world game. You can't really do a great deal. And you're like, oh. Now, I don't mind it being sort of, come, let us teach you the systems. Let's get you invested in the world. Just sit down in the roller coaster, which will take you on while you learn the very simplest of the. Because when I got dumped out the other side of that intro, I still didn't even know which way the controller was meant to be held, to be honest with you.
I mean, yeah, it throws a lot at you, especially, I think, if they'd have let you loose in the open world. I must admit, once you do get full reign, you start driving about and you start going into these different districts of the city, and everybody's ringing you, got a job for you. And it had just been too much. Whereas now you feel like you are a little bit established. You pulled off some major plays towards the end of that opening segment, which leads into the then full open world. And it kind of makes it feel like you've made your mark, so people have heard of you and do know who you are. I think it was handled really well. It might be a little slow for some people, bit of a slow burn, but just persevere with it, because the world is fantastic. Sadly, saw a few glitches, but I don't get the internet. Like, did people not play GTA 5 when it first came out? They can laud it all they want now, but
apparently it's not acceptable in 2020 yet. It was acceptable 2 or 3 years ago to have glitches and hiccups in a game. So,
mate, the internet's become a hive of scum and villainy lately. It's just like Game of Thrones is an example of like it wasn't the best season. Let's face it. Season 8 disappointed a lot of fans, but the hate was just unreal. That's someone's art they've put out there. A lot of work and effort go into it, especially when you watch like some of the making of documentaries. And these little cretins, I'll be 1 minute, who sit at home who have achieved nothing in life, feel they have the privilege to slate it and belittle it. And look at Metacritic, it's just become a joke because it means nothing, because it gets review bombed. So you can't trust. If you want to play a game and decide whether it's good or not, do that yourself and form a personal opinion. That's how you become that's how you have your own personality and own opinions on things. Do it yourself. Don't just sit there and jump on the bandwagon. And
well, I found a lot of people that were saying negative things about Cyberpunk and how it wasn't acceptable were the people that either didn't buy it or
exactly
were afraid to buy it or couldn't afford to buy it, or whichever way the hype train was leaving, they weren't on board and they were going to derail it.
Yeah,
I do have a couple of gripes, having finished the game myself.
Yeah,
and I will say that I thoroughly enjoyed it. And discounting all the bugs and whatnot, by the time the credits had rolled, I'd had some fantastic personal experience, some really great side stories. I recommend that now you're through, you pursue the Delamain cabs option.
I've done 3 of them already because I just find them really funny.
Yeah, well, it also gets you around the city in a nice way as well. So I'd say persevere with that because it is a nice intro to the world without going crazy.
Yeah, okay.
I think there's like one section with a gun in it, and that's about it. So it's all about exploring.
Did you get Jackie's bike?
Yes.
No spoilers there, but did you manage to lay your hand? Yeah. I find the bike a better way to travel because we discussed this off air about traveling around the world. Do you go third or first person on the vehicles? Now, third person makes it easier, I think, to drive. A car, definitely. But the bike in first person just feels fantastic.
The bike in first person allows you to cut through the traffic. The car in first person, you haven't got the view window you would have in real life. So you only see half of the screen. So you're often damaging the right-hand side of your vehicle, turning right into stuff that you can't see, hitting barriers.
You might as well be driving a bulldozer, aren't you?
Yeah, so if you take it steady in the car in first person, you're absolutely fine. On the bike in first person, you're not breaking immersion. You can see everything. Your cockpit center of screen. You can cut through the traffic relatively easily. I think since the patches have come out, it's stable enough to handle you being able to bomb around at full speed. Back to my earlier tangent, I will give it somewhere between a 7 and an 8. I found when I'd finished, although I love the side stories, the city is nothing more than a set for your experiences to unravel in. You know, I saw a food icon on the map and thought, oh, brilliant. You know, I'll go and eat some food first person, see what Night City's got to offer. And I walked past countless restaurants to get to this one place and then ordered some food in the menu. And then it stayed in my menu and I didn't consume there was no eating animation. And I was like, that's actually disappointing. You know, if you have a drink, the screen goes all fuzzy and, brilliant. But I wanted more. You know what I'm like? I wanted to live the world. I wanted.
Yeah, it's very old-fashioned in a lot of ways. And what you would expect in certain areas, as you were saying there, or like when you go to see the Ripper Doctor again, I just selected the upgrades and that was it. Like, it's such a strange choice. Maybe I think people, there's 2 sides. Is like some in Red Dead love to see like all the animation, skin the fur, chuck it on the back of the horse, take it to the thing, live that life. Other people just want to get the pelt, get it sold, and just want to speed it up.
Then I ask you, what's the point? What's the point of doing that?
I think it
is it just a grind?
But we've discussed this, haven't we? Where like a lot of today's audience is geared up for like now, give me the reward straight away, where they don't fully sort of appreciate the build.
I would have appreciated I would have gone to the Ripper Doc more, who I barely visited in my playthrough, if there'd been the option to have the things, watch your arm getting augmented, watch your eye get augmented, whatever limit was getting augmented. And if there was a little circle that popped up in the bottom right-hand corner that said skip, I'd have been totally on board. If I'd ordered a meal in a
Yeah.
restaurant and I'd started eating it, it came up on the right hand side and said skip, I'd have been awesome. And obviously I wouldn't have pressed it.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's keeping people's attention to keep them playing through is the big balance problem. And there's arguments for both, but knowing how we are with open world games, I think we want that full immersion into all the details. And like you say, the city looks phenomenal. It looks great. It is. I see your points on the set idea that if you scratch underneath it, it could have done with a lot more interactive. Like going to where you get your first fight off that guy, there's like weights and like a punch bag and stuff. It's like, what, you should just be able to use them. I know it's probably opening up another can of worms for them to deal with bugs and stuff. Speaking of glitches, I've had 2 or 3 hard crashes still, but because of the autosave, you don't. Yeah, it's a grumble. It takes you out of the game.
To be fair, because the autosave I felt like was the trigger for the glitch, because it takes you back literally 1 second before the glitch happened. So either the autosave triggered it, or the game knew it was crashing and autosaved. Now I can't work out which one it is.
Yeah, that's true. I find it for me, it happens when there's a lot of like high speed driving going onto a location. It maybe just can't handle it all the time.
I think it's a cross between each section is loaded in as you get to it.
Like the districts, yeah.
And if you're driving in the traffic at the speed of the traffic, you're probably not going to get a crash. This is why I didn't experience it as much, because I drove around like I'm live the world, play the game, live the game. Whereas if I was on the motorbike and ripped, I was like, oh, I need to get this done. I was absolutely nailed it into an area. So bing, save, crash, done, back to the dash. But this is why it's highly recommended on Series X or PS5, because click, 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 you're back in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's
it's
another
not
good reason.
That jarring, and you've got another hour and a half, 2 hours, or maybe 6 hours of a playthrough before it happens again. Now, I played it vanilla, and it crashed quite a lot, but I was willing to put all that to one side because I was completely on board.
I think going forward, before we move on to what you've been playing, if you own the base consoles, I would really, really just hang fire and play it on a next gen whenever you make the upgrade, or if you're making the upgrade. I know they promised like it was going to be on the base consoles, but they shouldn't have made that call, I think, and just said, look, we can't get it to run that well, and just have been honest. But they wanted to please the fans. And you got to remember, these guys have probably been working now up to Christmas or even over Christmas to patch it, to make it better. This is
the point I made. The same people, the same toxic cesspool of the internet that were harping on about how crunch is not acceptable. They're the same people that were saying this game's broken. Patch it now.
Give me my right. Just internet cretins. Let's move on before we rant. What have you been playing?
Well, you'd think a man with a brand new next gen console would be playing his brand new next gen console, but you'd be completely wrong. I've decided to revert to type. I've gone back to my beloved PS3, and I've been playing Batman Arkham Origins. It's a Christmas game. I started in September, couldn't grind with it, got totally sort of underwhelmed by it, and I think it was September, maybe August, I started playing it. But playing it at Christmas, I know, what have I become? You live long enough as the hero, and you become the enemy, or whatever the phrase is. Yeah, so I've been playing that and thoroughly enjoying it. I was playing it Christmas morning like it was a brand new game to me, sat there in my pajamas. And
the mockery you've given me over the years for being mainstream. I've got to play a Christmas set game at Christmas. Got to play a summer chilled out game in the middle of summer. Yeah. Oh, how the turntables have turned.
Well, I could have been playing Miles Morales, but I played the wheels off that in November and early December.
Have you got to the Deathstroke boss fight?
Oh, I'm very near the end. Bane has trashed the Wayne Mansion.
Yeah.
Although I don't know how that's canon, that he knows now that he is Bruce Wayne, but it's not revealed in any of the other Arkham games, which is a bit strange, but there you go. I don't really feel that needed to play out. I know there's a story beat there with Alfred, and there's a bit right where you get back to the Batcave essentially, and it's trashed, and you pull Alfred out from this wreckage, and you use your gauntlets, your shock gauntlets that you've managed to craft, because this is early Batman, or it's meant to be. It's early days, and you shock him back to life. And he gets up and he's like, "Oh, you have this big speech about how Batman thinks he's not worthy, and Alfred's like, "No, you are. You're the man. You can do it. Off you go." And you're breaking into Blackgate Prison, and he gets on the radio and says, Alfred, you don't worry about how I am. How are you? And he's like, "Oh, for a man who's just been shocked to life by some rudimentary gauntlets, I'm doing okay." And he's like, "Oh, if you get any arrhythmia, cardiac issues, call me." What the hell? So I found it quite knowing that it knew it was being ridiculous at this point, that they put that little sideline in there, and I found myself on my own laughing out loud at that. But it feels very much a game of its time. It feels very much we've often mocked Zelda on this show, you and I, for you go to this temple, you get this new thing that allows you to access this new thing in the temple, and probably be disregarded completely by the time you get to the next temple. And it's very much sort of use this gadget. Now, in the breaking into Blackgate Prison, I've used probably every one of my gadgets: remote batarang, cryptographic analyzer, the glue grenade, which is the naffest. And the way the buttons are assigned in this one as well, when you're fighting and you're getting a little bit carried away with the buttons, I'm throwing glue grenades on all the bad guys once I've unlocked them, because it's double tap of our right trigger to make it happen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, glue grenade, glue grenade, glue grenade. It's, what am I doing? But other than that, the difficulty curve has been acceptable. It's been pretty easy, to be fair. I'm playing it on normal mode, I'd imagine. But it's enjoyable. I'm looking forward to getting it done now on completion of this. I don't want it to welcome.
The same team are going to be creating Gotham Knights, from what I understand. So it's not the Rocksteady team.
Yeah.
They're working on the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I did some research. It's WB Montreal, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Does this pique your interest for that game a little bit more?
My interest was already piqued for that game. I didn't understand what I saw. I thought, this looks great. It looks good that we're getting to experience some of the other heroes. I don't want the multiplayer, but they came out straight away and said, "Oh, you don't need to." And the story and the graphics, and I'm not a massive graphic whore, obviously, because otherwise I wouldn't be playing PlayStation 3. I thought they looked serviceable.
Yeah, I hope it follows a similar vein in the single player on it too. When you're playing Arkham Knight, the third and final one, where you've got Robin with you or Nightwing, and you're doing like the dual takedowns. I mean, that's cool. That's what you want to see. And the AI is good enough to fight. And I think you can switch between them both, from what I remember. But yeah, it'd be nice to see what they do with that Gotham Knights. I think they probably had quite a bit of time to work on it. So fingers crossed.
Well, they've not done anything. I think they did some DLC. Obviously, they did some DLC for Origins. There's one that's meant to be it's like where you go off to meet Ra's al Ghul and learn all your martial arts and whatnot, which I was tempted to download. And then I read a review and it just said basically it's a 1-2 room arena. There's no voice acting. You just go through waves of baddies in a Far East type setting. So don't worry about that too much. There was another one that had a little bit more. I think it was the Cold Night. It was a chapter that was based on Mr. Freeze, and his wife, and apparently that was said to be better, but still not great. So I was going to do the DLC, but I'm probably not going to bother. They had the usual ramble of skins to download. I think they did some DLC for Arkham Knight, the PS4, Xbox One game, and PC Batman game, the third one of the actual trilogy. Other than that, they've done nothing since. Obviously, they're still an active studio, so one has to imagine they've been beavering away quite fastidiously on this Gotham Knights game.
Yeah.
Which it could be quite good. I mean, one thing I did notice while playing Origins is the city itself. I think this is the first time, because obviously in Arkham Arkham Asylum, you get just the asylum to walk around in. In Arkham City, you just get the subsection of Arkham City to walk around in.
It's like a bigger
a borough of Gotham.
Yeah.
And then in the third one, Arkham Knight, you get everything from memory.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously in this one, you're in Gotham, allegedly, except, if you walked around on the streets, if that was possible, I'm sure it would look great, although they'd be very empty, although there is a tannoy saying, stay inside for your own safety, stay inside, which I thought, that works pretty well. There's the random bad dudes about. But generally, I love the Christmas theme, the snow, the trees, the presents, the lights, the billboards, all particularly low res and all that sort of stuff. And there is a little bit of texture pop in at times, which, because I play the PS3 so much, I was going to get myself a solid state drive for it because it works and apparently does reduce texture popping. Although there is still a bottleneck at the PS3.
Does it speed up the load times at all? Or
it speeds up the loading and install times of games, and it reduces texture pop as well. So sometimes, although, not all the time. But I thought for 50 quid, I might get one and lob it in and then sort of future-proof the PlayStation 3 that I've got.
Nice.
And enjoy it.
Just closing out, back to Cyberpunk, the side missions and even the main missions, when you're interacting with, when you go, they usually get you sit down here and talk to this person. Mm-hmm. They've got to be some of the most they just seem so well animated and draw you right in. Even if you don't particularly like the character, you just like, I love just choosing the dialogue options. And I'm not usually a big fan of that. I just want to sort of find out what the thing is and then go do it.
A little bit like Mass Effect 1, though. Sometimes their responses feel very grey, don't they? Like, you pick Paragon A, and it's like, I want to be your best friend. They're like, oh, you like that, are you? And I think to myself, that would have been the option if I'd picked medium or negative as well. So.
Yeah, but I think the way it's presented almost feels just fantastic. There's a bit where you go into this sort of soundproof booth with Dexter, Deshawn, T-Bug, and Jackie, and you're just chatting with them about the sort of mission you've got to carry out.
Did you know you can zoom in, by the way? When you hold left trigger, I didn't realise until well after the sort of prologue that you could press forward on the D-pad.
Spent a lot of time utilising that in the Judy and Evelyn chats.
Judy is one of the most beautiful game women I've ever had the privilege to meet. She is fantastic.
Amazing character development.
You should wait until you play it out, friend. They are absolutely stunning character developments for those two. There's a couple of character traits that will throw you off, but you'll still want to see them through anyway.
How cool is that bit where you go and she teaches you about how to go into the brain dance?
Yeah, the brain dance.
And that is cool. That is like Minority Report type stuff where you in the apartment and you're figuring out. And I felt like
have you not watched Altered Carbon on Netflix?
I watched some of the first season. I feel like I maybe can go back to that now and get a bit hyped.
Cyberpunk the film. I'm surprised you're not all over it. Like when I'm finished playing, I go to my room, I sit down, and I watch Altered Carbon. Very, very, very similar vibe in a lot of it as well, especially when you're doing your private investigator moments.
Yeah. But when I did that brain dance and then carried out the mission, I felt like I went into that apartment. I was like, I know where everything is. I went and got the gun that was on the table to stop maybe that becoming an option. But also, I think it was just the fact that you can get that gun and it's quite not overpowered, but it's a good weapon. I knew where the security cameras were and how to deal with them. And fantastic. What a great idea. Well, we'll best move on.
Yeah, I mean, you're very early days in it, so I don't want to shatter all your illusions, but...
Oh, no, I can see it's got some problems already.
It's not the glitches that were the problems for me. It was more the set. A lot of it was set dressing. And maybe I'm not playing the game properly, but I explored every single facet of the game,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't feel I was getting as much out of it. Now, maybe we've played the very early vanilla game, and there's going to be extra DLC and other stuff coming down the pipe. I will go back to it because I want to have I played, as I said, a street urchin. I want to go through as a corpo because of a storyline I took on my street kid playthrough. I'm not overly bothered about seeing it from the nomad point of view because I kind of did anyway without giving too much away to you. But the corpo one is of interest to me.
Yeah.
But, excited to see what the DLC is. Excited to see some new side missions and other bits and stuff that they bring out. Anyway, the main meat of today's sandwich of choice on a rye bread, the pastrami and gherkin filling is the best games of 2020. Now, as we said earlier, Bobby couldn't be with us, but you and him went off script and had a game of the year chat in the middle of the Christmas Carol, which is good, which I implore everyone to go check out if you haven't done already. This is the sort of chilled out armchair director's commentary episode.
Between Christmas and New Year.
Yeah.
Absolute
So game
stuff.
of the year, we've got some nominations, some cheeky nominations here. So I'll run through a few of them. On the Xbox brand, we've got Battletoads. We've got a recent release, Call of the Sea. On the Nintendo platform, we've got the famous Animal Crossing, Age of Calamity, as well, Zelda the Hyrule game. On the PlayStation brand, we've got Ghost of Tsushima and Last of Us Part 2. Multi-format, we've probably got Doom Eternal. We've got Cyberpunk 2077, Streets of Rage 4. And I'm going to lob in Valhalla. And also on the PlayStation side, I want to lob in for contention Miles Morales and
Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Demon's Souls and Final Fantasy VII Remake. So little PlayStation heavy, but they have slammed out the exclusives left, right, and Chelsea. Where do you want to begin? What do you want to say on that list there? Is there anything else that you would want to add in?
Again, I echoed this in the Christmas episode. The Switch really, I don't know whether it's affected Nintendo massively with the pandemic, but they just seem to have struggled compared to everyone else. They do have years though where they'll churn out some great content, and then the next year it's kind of mediocre. I mean, Animal Crossing became the biggest game during lockdown. I didn't play it myself because I was playing Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, both fantastic games, which were discussed at length in previous shows during that time of year. But Animal Crossing, yeah, I think they pulled out all the stops with that. From what I've read about it, it's probably the best entry in the series. It does deserve a bit of praise. It's obviously kept people occupied and really got a broad audience. Read about like an 85-year-old woman playing it and having so many certain hours on it. And
Bobby's wife Eva putting in 300-400 hours on Animal Crossing. I mean, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's what they're all about, isn't it? Like broadening the gaming audience. Whereas if you give someone Cyberpunk or Assassin's Creed Valhalla, it's very much a typical gamer's game. I shouldn't tarnish everything with that, but Nintendo are very good at delivering, say, broad games for everybody. And just reaching out to people who might have even not picked up a console before. And that helps because of the handheld style of the Switch as well. Touching on, I played that short hike game on the Switch. That's about the only game I've played on it. I played the demo of Age of Calamity Hyrule Warriors, which is, if you're not aware, it's a spin-off of a prequel story set with the Dynasty Warriors engine or gameplay. It's quite enjoyable. It's very like hack and slash. If you
Dynasty
played these
Warriors,
games before,
I never really vibed with. I was more of a Kesson guy. Very, very
yeah,
similar. If you turned the box over of those games, you'd be like, it's the same game. Like, well, no,
yeah,
one's like a real time strategy where you're down on the
yeah.
ground, and it Kesson I think you could still play today and be like, oh, do you know what? This feels pretty good. It looks pretty good as well.
Mhm.
Dynasty Warriors, if you went back to the PS2 and played it, it feels, I don't know, like you just swading through origami
Yeah.
soldiers. It's not very
I think,
meaty at all.
yeah, I think if you took away the Breath of the Wild um, sort of attachment to that game, I'd have no interest in playing it because it's just not my sort of game, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not for everyone, but they've got a very dedicated fan base, and it's nice that it might bring some fans from that into the Zelda world and go, oh, I might try Breath of the Wild and cut down 5 baddies and go, there's not much action in this.
No, no.
So,
James
yeah, I
the
mean,
Work Experience Boy's been struggling with Breath of the Wild, I think, for that reason. There's the Minecraft element of combine this and this and get X, and that's quite interesting, but then
has
nothing.
has he bought any new games for that machine, or is it still the very much Minecraft and Fortnite box?
It's still very much Minecraft and Fortnite box. Father Christmas came to the New York apartment and he delivered to him the Minecraft Dungeons.
Oh, that looks quite good.
Which he's been a little bit taken with.
Oh, that's
Mario
good.
Kart Augmented Reality, Mario Kart Live, I think it's
Oh,
called.
with the cart?
Mm-hmm.
Has he got that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that looks great.
It does, doesn't it? But
Great idea.
it's a great idea, and I think it's certainly a great thing to unwrap on Christmas morning. I think that you end up laying out an oval track because you get 4 stanchions and you get a couple of lines. So obviously you can be a bit more imaginative because you lay them down and then you drive the course and the switch goes, right, that's the course. So I'll do lines either side round that you have to stay in. And you look at the cart and it's moving at like, I don't know, 400, very, very slowly, but on the screen it feels like you're going really fast. And when you get a speed boost, the cart does increase its speed and you feel like you're going fast on the screen. But it's obviously, unless you've got 2 carts, and that in today's world of Corona and all that, that's a bit difficult. It's a 1-player game. It's not overly difficult. I think the setting it all up when you've got other games to play, and if you're not allowed to play out with your friends, you're going to gravitate towards online multiplayer experiences.
Yeah.
I think we forget this. So this is the friend angle that's going on a lot. So Minecraft Dungeons plays into that. There was Super Smash arrived as well, which I still have no idea what I'm doing. Obviously, James, the Work Experience Boy, knows exactly what he's doing with it. And I end up just sort of flailing on the upturned nunchuck, which I don't always find is the best controller.
If Astrobot is the homage to PlayStation brand, then Super Smash Bros. Is that for Nintendo? There's so many Easter eggs and
it is, but it also plays quite heavily into what I would call video game lore because there's quite a lot of characters in Super Smash that aren't Nintendo-centric characters.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Which I actually think is quite cool.
Yeah, no, I
so that's
great
that.
Game.
There's a round robin of what's been going on the Switch in the apartment. I've not really had a look in. I've been thrown in front of Smash to basically lay down like a sacrificial lamb. Every half hour, I have to get my whooping on Smash. But the console as a whole, I like it. I think it's a great travel between apartments type machine. For James the Work Experience Boy, flitting between the wonderful New York and the UK. It's a perfect machine. It really is. It's age appropriate. It's life appropriate. It's everything that he needs. Brilliant. For me, we've said this before, it's lacking the gravitas of the game. Obviously, yes, we can get a Doom Eternal on it. Oh, yes, we can get the Doom 2016 reboot. Yes, we can get this. Yes, we can get that. But we can get Witcher 3, but it looks like Minecraft Witcher. Like, no, thank you.
If you're an adult gamer, such as myself, it's like, why would you, if you're lucky enough to own, and according to the stats, a lot of people own a Switch and another console, especially adult gamers, because it gives you that handheld option if you're working away or traveling or commuting, whatever. So I think if you're going to buy The Witcher 3, you're going to buy it on your PlayStation or Xbox, or you're going to buy Doom Eternal on one of those. I don't think they have to worry. It doesn't seem like they worry about having an upgrade that soon. I think we might see one next year, but
well, my question to you would be, what's the point?
Yeah, until games like Fortnite, Minecraft, and your Marios, like your Kart, Smash Bros, 3D World, or whatever, until they start struggling or have like graphic upgrades on the other machines where the Switch starts really chugging, then they're not going to worry.
No, why would you?
Yeah.
And to that point, I think, they can hoard their Animal Crossing money. They can hoard all that other cash. They outsold every other console on run up to Christmas again. It's on record for for having a pretty stratospheric rise and a great return on investment for Ninty. So fair play to them. On the Xbox side, there's a game I missed that intrigued me, and I've heard lots of good things about it. It's still in beta as far as I'm aware. It's that Grounded game as well.
Oh, that looks really cool.
Yeah. I mean, that to me appeals greatly. It's kind of like a Minecraft type title where you've got to build things. They had the underwater update where you could build things in the koi pond, like underwater bases, and you can hunt the legendary koi, which is obviously a little bit like Moby Dick because of the size comparison. That looks great. Again, I think that's by Obsidian from memory.
Good studio.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of it looks great. The sense of humour and the tongue-in-cheek style which it's presented, especially in the trailers, seems...
I thought it was a Rare game when I first saw it.
It would have been a great fit for them. Yeah. It really would have. And it's got the nods in there to Microsoft history with the Battletoads, which is another game, obviously very accessible game, although probably just as difficult in certain settings as its 26-year-old brother. It looks like the cartoon or like a cartoon, which speaks to the retro vibe of the game, a little bit like Streets of Rage 4, which we'll get to. Another one, a recent entry on the Xbox brand, is that Call of the Sea, which is like the Jules Verne, H.G. Wells inspired mystery. To try and fence it in as a genre, you'd probably try and call it like a point and click. It's probably most reminiscent of something like Myst, if you remember that. Do an area puzzle, move to the next area, kind of like that. I think very poignant story from everything that I can understand.
Sorry.
No, carry on.
Just before we close on sort of Microsoft, I think 2021 is going to be a big year for them. They acquired a lot of studios, and I feel like 21 is going to be where we see the fruits of the labours. Latest rumours are Halo Infinite will now come November of 2021, which I think could be great. I think they need to say,
but they're on about breaking the promise of having it come out on the Xbox One series and how it's going to be on the Xbox series only, which
I think
do it.
Cyberpunk has shown that is the way forward. I'm all for like supporting the older consoles because we're lucky that we got PS5, and there's people who are lucky who got the Series X and S. Not everyone's fortunate. Just support that console, but eventually it has to have a line where they say, this is next gen gaming. We want to deliver on people who have paid for something like with more power and able to ramp up the graphics a lot. It's going to be interesting to see whether we get the raw deal again with like something like God of War Ragnarok, is it going to be on PS4? To me, it shouldn't be. Just make
I think it will be.
Yeah, I think next year is going to be still cross-plat.
I think the fortunate for Sony, gangbuster success of the PlayStation 4 has almost painted on a rather dismal PlayStation 5 experience. I'll be honest. Normally, a new console launches, like, yes, the PlayStation community got Demon Souls. Brilliant. And that graphically, fantastic. Miles Morales, there's times where you probably think you're playing a PlayStation 4 Pro game, Although in the end game of Miles Morales, it's doing stuff that I think with the lights and the HDR and the neon and all that, especially in the end boss sequence with the Tinkerer, it looks $1 million, especially on a 4K HDR set. The presentation of that product was peerless. But if you've still got millions of people in the PlayStation 4 ecosystem that's paying your bills, you have to make sure that you scratch that itch. So therefore, like when the PlayStation 4 launched, they had to draw a line under the PlayStation 3 because there was no backwards compatibility. So it was like, we're done, move on, drop it, forget it. When the PlayStation 3 launched, there were still PlayStation 2 games coming out. PlayStation 2 had been a massive, massive success for Sony. The PlayStation 3 there was missteps all over by Sony. It was overpriced. Well, it wasn't overpriced for what was in there, but it was overpriced for the market at that point. But the PlayStation 2 was so successful, you were still getting games that were coming out on PS2 that were getting PlayStation 3 ports or rehashes. And it took a long time for the PlayStation 3 to shake off its shackles, especially because the launch wave of PlayStation 3 came with PlayStation 1 and 2 compatibility baked in. So they didn't need to worry. You could still play a PS2 game on there, no issues. You didn't want to because the leap was as much between PlayStation 1 and 2 as it was between 2 and 3 with the textures and the fidelity. It really did feel like you'd come on. PlayStation 4 to a late PlayStation 3 release, not so much. It was that upgrade like we're seeing with the 4 to the 5. It's very small at this point in time. I think when we get Horizon Zero West has already gone on record and said it's going to be a both platform release. That's coming out 2021. I don't see how God of War cannot be.
Yeah, you're probably right. The same with Gran Turismo and Returnal. There's no, I think that's going to be like a Demon Souls. I think it might get a PC port.
Yes. Now, my only concern with that is Housemarque Studios, Housemarque Games. They're not renowned for making big games.
Yeah, this is £70.
This is 70 quid. Like Miles Morales had the foresight to launch, unless they were bolstering in Spider-Man Remastered, at quite a low price. If Returnal's an 8-hour game and it's $69.99, that's not a very good return on investment. Now, it's probably good for Housemarque. Brilliant. And maybe with its procedural generation, it will be almost an infinite game. But I don't think it is. So we need to see we need to see some more stats because that's the next big tentpole release for them. They're going to get behind it and hype it. When was that? I think February, March.
Yeah, it comes out March. With the price point there, I don't think that's going to stick at all. I think they'll change it. It's the same every gen. They try and push for a higher price. You can look in the comments, as I'm sure they do in forums and gaming websites. Every comment, this looks great, but I'm not paying £70 for it. That's what they found with Destruction All-Stars. That's why they're going to make it a PS Plus game.
The thing is that makes sense to me. Like Destruction All-Stars would never have floated as the game that it is if it had been a pay-for entry. Yeah. It just wouldn't have worked. Like Rocket League's probably way more. It was a successful game, but now it's free to play. It's probably way more successful. You pay through the skins, you play through the cars, you pay through the stadiums and all the ramble that Epic seem to love these days.
Yeah,
but Destruction All-Stars, I don't think is going to be that. That was built by someone in a marketing room on a spreadsheet saying, what's popular? Well, I hear that Rocket League's popular, boss. Brilliant. What else is popular? I hear that Fortnite's popular. Brilliant. Do they make money? Oh, they make loads of money, boss. All right, so
Ching
let me just
ching. Yeah.
put this in the spreadsheet. So cars, add battle royale, add free to play expansions equals okay. We're gonna have a game called, and this is what it's gonna be. I don't know about that. Add to library. Yeah, I'll have a look at it one day if it's raining, it's snowy, and all the other games have melted.
Um. Yeah. I'm going to try because me teammates who I tend to play online with, we'll be keen to try that as a team of 3 or 4.
What, Destruction All Stars?
Yeah, I think we'd give that a whirl.
Equally so, I'll be getting Returnal. I'll be ready for a game by then.
I think it's the timing it'll be spot on. We might even see Ratchet and Clank before that. But if they chuck that 70 quid Returnal price at me, it's going to have to be a lot to justify paying that for it.
And it looks great. It looks great.
Look brilliant. Really
want it. Sci-fi storyline that I normally would go for.
Yeah.
So I'm quite intrigued. It just depends if there's the weight there.
Yes, absolutely. We'll probably touch quickly at the end on some of the titles we're really looking forward to in 2021. But quickly before we move on.
Well, I want to do multi-plats.
Yeah, I just want to say Microsoft have got to cut that loose on Halo Infinite. It's giving people a year nearly to save up for a next gen, and the S is a brilliant option. So cut the base console loose with Halo Infinite and push that mother, because it needs.
Well, I believe under the radar, Sony have they're still supporting the PlayStation 4, but I don't think you can get your hands on a Pro, and I think you'd struggle. Obviously, stocks, the warehouses have got stocks, Argos, Amazon, they've all got stocks of PlayStation 4 and the Pro, but I don't believe they're making it anymore. So once they're gone, they're gone. Obviously, there's a massive user base. Now, I think Microsoft are a little bit further ahead on that train, is the fact that they probably hadn't overproduced stocks of the Xbox One based on its install base and other stuff. So that's dwindling down. So really, if you're going to go to market, you can get the S at $249, which is a great price point, a great entry point. I talked someone into one. Someone said, "I'm thinking about getting one of these new consoles. What do you reckon, PlayStation 5 or Xbox?" I was like, "You're not that massively into games." "Well, no, I'm not, but I'm intrigued." "Okay, so why don't you get an Xbox Series S? Right? How much are they? $250. "Oh, that's a bit more like it. I thought it'd be like 400-500 quid." I was like, no, it's $250. Get the Games Pass. What's that? Said, well, basically, to break it down to you, it's the Netflix of games. All right. So you don't have to get online, I don't believe. You can just get the Games Pass. Happy days. You got your Forza. Oh, that's what I wanted it for, Forza. Perfect. Although it's going to end up long-term costing you more money, I think it's in such palatable little chunks that you're going to be completely on board with it. And
I think you're getting a great amount of content for that. I think it's going to be the future for a lot of people who aren't playing all the time. Because
it's your casuals, isn't it? It's your uncle that you go to his house back in the day and he'd have a PS2 and had a copy of Grand Theft Auto Vice City and Gran Turismo, and you'd be like, "What?" It's you know. How far you got on Vice City? You finished it? "Oh, I just like driving around in the cars." Oh, right, okay. So it's that you're in town, you've got a loose. I mean, uncles were like, they'd have a loose 250 quid in the back pocket or whatever. It was either the PlayStation 1, 3 years into its life cycle, it's the PlayStation 2, cheap off a mate at work, or a kid wants one of the young work experience boys or trainees wants to go to Magaluf and wants some money for a holiday and a couple of Pink Panther cocktails. There you go, Sonny, I'll buy your PlayStation 2 off you, FIFA, Gran Turismo and Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Never played them, but it sits under the telly. It looks cool.
I'll get you 50 quid for the lot.
Yeah, fine. I'll bring it in tomorrow. All boxed, immaculate. He's like, that's what you get for being one of the bigger boys with disposable income. Yeah, look at me. Gets it home, sets it all up, holds the controller upside down, drives the car into a wall, never turns it on again. That is the sort of person that's going to buy the Xbox Series S and Games Pass. As long as, if Microsoft play it right, it will come it will almost force you to get Games Pass immediately. So he'll be gorged, won't he? He'll download Forza, hold the controller upside down, drive a car into the wall, like, oh, crikey. He'll download Forza Horizon, he'll do the same, he'll turn it off and never turn it on again. But Microsoft are taking the money out of his account on a monthly basis. Yes, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. Don't own anything physical, but give it to me. Perfect idea.
I think it's one of the best business model and console ideas for a very long time.
Sadly, at the minute, despite how many times people waft the numbers under my nose, Microsoft has gone on record and say it is a loss-making program. They need to get to almost market-leading domination of the product for that business model to pay out. But it's a good road to success, I would say. It's not an instant. They're not making enough money from Games Pass for it to be sustainable, but it is a road to success, which I think long term is a good idea.
Yeah.
What are we plans?
So we've got
Doom Eternal,
Streets of Rage
4,
Valhalla,
and Cyberpunk. I slapped it in there. I was feeling cheeky.
Yeah, we've kind of said a lot about that, but if you've got anything else to add, we can.
No, not really. I mean, Streets of Rage 4 came out of nowhere. I absolutely loved it. Me and James, the work experience boy, played the wheels off of it launch weekend, finished it. Not on the harder difficulty, but at least on normal. And we thoroughly enjoyed it. It looked great. It, much like Battletoads, it looks like a Saturday morning cartoon, but reimagined. But still harking back to its 16-bit roots, which I thought was great. It's always made me wonder why during the Saturn, and we did kind of get it with Fighting Force. It's a story for another day, but Streets of Rage could have done some amazing stuff on Dreamcast, and they wasted the opportunity. There was lots of franchises could have revisited, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I know you did too. We even did a playthrough on our YouTube channel.
We did.
About as popular as syphilis. I'd say that, though most people have had syphilis, so probably nowhere near as popular as that. Not even as popular as syphilis. I mean, that's going some, that is.
I revisit this game a lot with a friend of mine, and we play it more how back in the day when I used to play it on the Mega Drive with my friend, like local co-op, used to just enjoy playing through to see the different characters and the different bosses and just play as your favourite character, whoever that may be, Axel, Max, Skate, Blaze, Adam, they're all in there in the different games. But now we find ourselves trying to push ourselves to do the harder difficulties or clear that one stage. And it's quite an addictive game. I never realised it had that.
I tell you what,
school.
The stage in the sewer with the pumping stereo, and the green goo, the music's fantastic down there, and the effects and graphics are fantastic. That's my favourite level.
Yeah, throughout the whole game, the soundtrack's phenomenal. Really nice as well. You can put the 16-bit soundtrack on if you wish. In the background. It doesn't suit it, I don't think. It's nice for nostalgia, but it doesn't.
I personally like the 16-bit filter on the graphics. I think that suits it. The pixel lines. I think that makes it look really great. I think other than that, it looks a little bit like a Java game. It's the graphics are great. Don't get me wrong, but it's very much. It feels like one of those games that was knocked out in the mid 2000s on Xbox Live Arcade. Without that,
I know pays what you
more
mean.
Homage to its roots. Fantastic art style, well delivered, great. A little bit like Battletoads in that regard, but it's lacking that something for me, and what I get from that, the 16-bit filter. Everything else.
I think it's maybe it's so ingrained that when you're playing that, it should be in like pixelated graphics, but it's not. So it kind of something feels a bit strange. But I'd love to see more of that. But considering it took something like 26 years to get this one,
exactly. If people go back through the episodes as well, they'll find I was a little bit disconcerted by the art style from the get-go. So maybe I was always going to struggle.
Yeah.
But the gameplay, I'll agree with you, is fantastic. Doom Eternal.
Oh, what a game. I've played and finished that. Loved every minute of it. It's so fast-paced and it's so different to your Call of Duties and even Overwatch and any Battlefield or your standard sort of shooters. It's constant like run and gun, and the weapon design is fantastic. I know a lot of them have been in the original Doom sort of reboot, and we did a big feature on Doom, which you want to check out in the back catalogue. It's great. It's just the story again is a bit like, how much am I actually paying attention to this? Just give me the next room of baddies to work through.
It's kind of really not even relevant, is it?
Yeah, I know there are fans of the lore, a bit like Demon Souls and the Souls series, but I just tend to play them for the gameplay because it's that good. Graphically, Doom Eternal looks fantastic, runs so smooth, 60 frames per second on both consoles and the base. Well, obviously, it's, I believe, a sort of slightly upgraded version on the next gen. Quite easy to get into, but difficult to master because when you start up in the difficulty, or I think it's the Marauder enemy, which was a new enemy for this game. He is tough as nails, and there's a certain way to take him down. But again, please check out the back catalogue. For any of, we've probably, most of the games we've featured, we talk about more heavily in previous episodes, but some of them have a special sort of feature if we deemed it like a big enough release or a history of for that series. Yeah. Are you going to pick that up? Have you played the 2016?
Well, I've not bothered with it
reboot
since the 2009 No, it was earlier than that. Yeah. Was it like the 2004 reboot or something ridiculous? Yeah. I've not played a Doom since then, apart from on the Saturn, PlayStation original, and then 32X. I've not played Doom. Like I say, the most newest incarnation was that 2004. Probably 2003 reboot, whenever it was early doors, wasn't it? And that, was a graphically outstanding game. It was lore heavy because it was, a little bit more entrenched in what's going on. But no, I don't know if I will pick it up. Maybe if it's cheap enough one day when I'm browsing CEX and it's a couple of quid, I'll get it. But if not, then no. Valhalla, a game that intrigues you, a game that Bobby's poured in 150 hours. If you want to get the platinum, that's the level of dedication it requires. I'm not overly bothered about the platinum.
That's a lot of content.
The story is tickling me under my chin enough to keep persevering with it, but when you got to ask yourself, if I'd rather play Batman Arkham Origins, is it really that good? I preferred the original series. I know it was tired; it needed to do something new, so they went open world using the tried and tested Ubisoft formula. Of unlock area, do side missions in area, do side quests in area, move to next area. Fair enough. The only thing that really is keeping me interest really is the England vibe, but now I've seen some of the places that I was only mildly interested in anyway. I'm kind of a little bit washed up on the beach with it. I'll keep going until the point where I really can't be bothered to go anymore, but it it's a multi-format game on a next-gen console. If I had PlayStation 4, would I be even more interested in it? Possibly. Is it part of that franchise, more of the PlayStation 4, Xbox Series X, Xbox One game trilogy? Yes, it is. It's the third one of that open world from that franchise.
Do you think it suffers from being too big and too much to do?
A little bit, maybe. I'm not normally put off by that. I think if you wanted to mainline the story, you could get it done in no uncertain terms. You would probably rock up to certain areas a little bit underleveled, which would then make the game harder than it needs to be. If you do wander out of area, a little bit like a game we're going to get to, Ghosts, if you wander out of area in the early game, you are going to get your backside handed to you on a plate, which I made the mistake of doing. Then when I stuck to areas in Ghosts, you get the levels, you get the power, you get the experience. In Ghosts, I just felt it more interesting to go look at the different things on the map. Whereas Valhalla has got yellow is treasure, blue is side story, white is like interest, person of interest or thing of interest. And I don't know, we said last week, how do they bash them out? so much, get the graphic fidelity where it is, get the gameplay where it is, get all this. Well, they do that by not really doubling down on anything in particular. It's an okay-ish game. For me, Ghost of Tsushima will move now. As you say, we've talked enough about Cyberpunk. We'll move into the PlayStation franchise. Ghost of Tsushima had enough, but not too much, to make you want to. By the end, I think I unlocked the whole of the first island and nearly all of the second island and probably 60% of the third island. And by that mean I went everywhere. I just didn't do every collectible and every side story.
Yeah. There's times in that where it does feel, this is what always puts me off Assassin's Creed, was you are going through the motions. I think this is the balance between something like The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghosts is one is open world, one is linear.
Well, it's like Valhalla, and I'll use that in the Ghosts. I think you're circling around the edge of probably what I'm going to say. If it's got a storyline in the game, why would you? I think me and Bobby talked about this. Why would I stop halfway between going to get this antidote that's like the story's saying to you, this is a made up situation, by the way, it's in either game, but someone's just been poisoned. You must dispatch immediately to get this antidote from person B halfway across the map.
Yeah.
On your way, you come across this thing that's like, this old lady's like, oh, collect 50 flowers and I'll give you the sword of Akimar. All right, I'll do that. Meanwhile, supposedly your son or whatever is dying back at base while you get the antidote. When you finally get there, pick up the antidote and get back. Oh, thanks for being so quick. Oh, no problems. Yeah, I picked up the 50 flowers. Yeah. I slaughtered 6 rats in this person's dungeon for a potion of Bing Bong Boo. I went over there and got the sword of Atiok. I got the holy artichoke from the druid on the hill by climbing all the high points in the game. Like, no. I want an open world. But if I'm on a story-driven mission, there should be no deviation from that. It seems ridiculous. And I think that's where I kind of cop out. I know Bobby plays it. He gets to a new area and he has to see every bit on the map, all the question marks he has to do in that area, and then he'll move on. And to me, that'd be like watching The Walking Dead and watching 2 episodes back-to-back, a 2-parter, of them collecting apples. For no apparent reason whatsoever, apart from like when they finally handed the apples over, Rick got a new set of boots that enabled him to run a little bit quicker in the next episode.
This is the big challenge for open world games going into next gen, is not so much like graphical quality and so forth, because we know they can do that, and the ones we're seeing this year look fantastic. But it's changing the formula to, like you said, Cyberpunk is same as that. It's like, oh, you must come here right away, but then you don't have to do it. You can just go around and dawdle along.
Well, it's when 16-bit platformers were all the rage. Then you got to 32-bit, and it became the collectathon. But by the time the PlayStation 2 collectathons came around with Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter, it was a little bit boring.
Yeah, I mean, if you look, as we were saying with side quests, they track so much. The way I feel they need to build it maybe is like a TV show. I'm going to use Mandalorian for an example. There's nice little stories in those episodes, but a lot of the time it's built into a greater story arc. And those episodes are contributing to that story arc. So the characters they meet influence or have some say-so on the main story. And I feel that's where they need to be at to make those feel more genuine and important to the overall arc of the story.
Agreed. Yeah,
because when they don't, you just feel like, if it's a big enough game where you live in the day-to-day life of that person, you can understand it a little bit, because it's like, oh, I've just been and done this. Oh, but yeah, I best check in with that person because I've not heard them for a while. It's just making that a bit more streamlined. That's why, for me, I think Last of Us Part 2, I love Ghost of Tsushima, and it's got 2 or 3 standout moments where it's like, this is just brilliant. Last of Us 2, I think, is the better game because it moves along at a pace. There is an urgency to get through it, but it's long enough that you're like, that is really good value.
It's also bold enough to explore making you experience a set of emotions rather than having to kill like you have to kill. This is where Last of Us 2 falls down a little bit. Like you have to kill baddies in X area to progress to B area. You need to kill baddies in B area to progress to C area. But the main underlying drive of the game is the emotions it makes you feel. And they were very brave. Again, no spoilers. And again, the internet hate wagon who'd never played it. Because I think once you've played it, your sympathy and interest in character C is so great that if there is ever a Last of Us 3, if it's not based on them, I will be thoroughly disappointed. I feel like the internet will have won and it will be another Ellie adventure and it will score very low because it will be, well, I'm kind of bored of seeing what Ellie's doing now. I want to see something else. Oh, okay. So, but if it had been character C, you would have flamed it regardless, so they can't win. So for me, they need to drop Last of Us now. It doesn't need a third game. They've done enough. It's like I don't want to see another Drake's game either. Now they're on about another studio making that game. Drop it, leave it. You know, you're getting into the trap of forcing studios to make games they don't want to make just because you think it's a cash cow. Drop it immediately. Let them do something different. They are money-making enterprises, but they're artists and producers, directors and writers at the end of the day. And if you force them to write this again and again and again, and a game like Last of Us, it's worth 2 series of a TV show in terms of writing, backing and padding and filling and acting and recording and animating. It's not a minimal undertaking. It's big. So yeah, there's my point there. Last of Us 2 was brave. It was more of a story of emotions rather than gameplay tropes. But because it's a game, it was still married to almost 16-bit styles of clear area B before moving on to. All it needed was the animated sort of go arrow. Once you cleared the area, like beep 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 go, beep 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 go. Like no.
I mean the actual gameplay of that is really nicely done. The animations, and it feels a lot more real than a lot of the games we've discussed already.
Oh, and that's again
brutal.
It played into how Last of Us 2 is not a game you put on for a laugh.
Oh no, definitely not. It's a dark old journey.
It is dark, and the actual individual kills are super dark as well. They're gory and they're visceral and they're so well animated that it's like, oh my God. You almost can't play it in long stints for that reason, I don't feel. I had to force myself for the show to battle through it. Miles Morales, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, nice little game. I don't know what else to say about it. It was an emotional ending again. They short nailed that, like the Spider-Man 4 Aunt May ending. We'll not delve too much into that, but I felt just as emotional about Miles Morales ending. I thought it was very well done. It does benefit from the shorter runtime, but also you kind of feel like didn't really see many like main Spider-Man villains there. I think they're trying to create his own little world, which is cool.
Well, Spider-Man 2, the inevitable sequel, which I don't want to see come anytime soon because I think it would suffer from sequel mania. Is it going to have both of them in? Is that going to be the play? Spider-Man 2, and it is actually 2 Spider-Men?
Yeah, the way they set it up, kind of with the last few sort of cutscenes is very much that's where they're heading, and I think that's a good choice. It's what everyone is expecting, but also what I think can work quite well.
I believe they're going to have to work their socks off to make you want to play as Peter.
I think they might go even braver than that. I think they might get rid of him.
Wow.
Towards the end, I think they'll give us a full pretty much game of having the choice of both. Or just do alternate missions. That might be the way, but then we get that Last of Us reaction, don't we? Of like, I don't want to play those ones. Just want to play as that one.
Exactly.
So it's how they make that freedom of choice work with.
Well, a couple of games. Well, we'll do Astrobot quickly. Because I'm mindful of yours and my time.
Yeah.
On this special episode, we were going to do just a quick nod to the fans. We were going to do like a special Stingray episode, which is probably going to be in January now. Tom's allergic to listener Stingray, and we've also got limited time for this episode. So, Astrobot, Thoughts?
Fantastic. Enjoyed it a lot more than I thought. A great little game.
Your initial sort of comment to me, though, was I don't have enough nostalgia for PlayStation brand to want to really see any more of that. And then you platinumed it.
Yeah, I think I wanted to get a platinum trophy because I haven't got one, ashamedly, on PlayStation. When I hit the PS1 and PS2, did get quite a lot of nostalgia because I had them both. But 3 and 4 is not old enough for me to have that. Like, oh, I remember that. It's like, yeah, that was only
you see, I had nostalgia for that. The theme,
because you had it from a very early stage, didn't you? Whereas I got on board probably at least halfway through its lifespan. But yeah, Demon Souls, the launch title, fantastic game. That was what I put in, and it's like this feels next gen. There's a bit where you're going through at the start like a stone sort of corridor, water on the floor, and you want to make sure you have the HUD set to cinematic because it comes up when you're fighting, but when you're just moving around, it goes and it just makes it adds that little bit more. And I spun around the camera, looked at my character, I was like, God, I think it's a certain set of armor as well, because the characters, like the human faces and their bodies and like the sort of more cloth clothes, feel a bit like flat compared to how good the armor looks.
Question, so did you play it on PS3?
No.
Because a lot of the hardcore are saying, this isn't my Demon Souls. This is not, I want it.
Wow. They can just try their eyes. You could say that about so many remakes. It's like, well, if you don't
I wonder, and I don't mind either way. I think I'd prefer an easier Souls game, but I don't mind either way. But do you think because it was a launch game, they felt they had to just tone it down a little bit, make it that little bit more accessible?
If they're moaning about the difficulty, it's still solid. It's still unforgiving. But wait till you get to New Game Plus, because it just hits you around the back of the head with a sledgehammer. Because it's like, I've played a lot of New Game Pluses on their games, and this is just another level. Like, normal enemies now are just back to being an absolute nightmare. So there's the challenge there. But yeah, I think probably there's some truth in what you said about, yeah, it's a launch game. They need to just have a little bit more accessibility. And it probably was the easier of those. I've not played 1. I've played Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2 and 3, and Sekiro. And out of those 4, Demon Souls is probably the easier.
Okay. Well, I think this episode is called The Best Games of 2020. We're not here to label a favourite. I think we've touched on a few, not just a few, a smorgasbord of great games. For me, I think we had a conversation last episode. I think ultimately, out of the ones I played, I would definitely come down on the side of, we had the Final Fantasy VII Remake, baby.
Can you just give the fans a little bit of a talk of the original one of those? Because did you play it, or you had some idea of it?
Oh, back in the day, yeah. It's been.
I will be 2 minutes. I've just got to speak to I've got to speak to Lionel. He's here to discuss paperwork for the parole.
Oh, is he? Okay, all right. We'll get that signed up, then we can finish the show. So, Tom wants me to give you a little sort of my memories of Final Fantasy VII. They're very hazy, I have to admit. It was a game came out. There was a lot of hype in the magazines at the time. I had a PlayStation 1 from launch. As you know, fans of the show, I traded my whole life for that PlayStation 1, a demo disc, and we were waiting for a big game, and I bought some real tat on the way to Final Fantasy VII. I bought Lone Soldier and some other ramble that the magazines and PlayStation themselves were trying to tentpole to get sales going. Final Fantasy VII came out, and it had the CGI intro and the cutscenes and the story. And to be honest with you, compared to 16-bit RPGs I played, it was very similar. It didn't feel next-gen enough to me for me to persevere with it. I know I had dalliances with it. For me, that real turning point came in Resident Evil 1, which I played the absolute wheels off. I have to admit, and that was maybe my first game on PlayStation that I was really like, yeah, this is something they couldn't have done. Whereas Final Fantasy VII felt like a reskin of a 16-bit RPG, which is probably what it was. But yeah, for me, I kind of struggled with that. I'm excited to play the remake. I was just letting Tom, do you sign your parole paperwork?
All done and dusted.
Brilliant. I was just letting
Thanks
the fans know, no worries. Things are going to be a little bit tight. I'm going to probably have to not pay myself because Bobby's fee is it's only 75% of what you get paid or got paid, but that's still not. He's a podcasting celebrity. He came to me with a CV full of shows that he was doing, and Suit Max Media said, "Yeah, but you're just going to have to roll for what you've always rolled for, George." So, yeah, it's not great, but there you go. I was just letting the fans know because you had to nip off and I had to fill, not as eloquently as you would fill, but I had to fill. And I was explaining that my history with Final Fantasy VII back in the day, it wasn't that great, a little hazy. I remember when I was in the Navy and I got PlayStation 1 again, I did pick up Final Fantasy VII for like £1 or £4. I think it was like £4 because
a pound per disc.
Exactly that. He was like, "Well, it's got 4 discs in it, mate." And I was like, "Oh, really? It's so old." He's like, "Oh, yeah, £4, fiver. I think it was a fiver." And now it's like 20 some odd quid, which is ridiculous, really. But and I had another go at it, but I found I got more satisfaction out of 9 when I went back to it retrospectively to that franchise.
Old rat boy,
as you call it, than I did because Cloud Strife was looking very polygonal at the time. So when it first came out, I'm pretty sure I had it, and it just felt like a reskin of the 16-bit RPGs I've been playing on SNES, which didn't really get my goat. And I was saying that Resident Evil was the first game that came out on PlayStation for me that I got and was like, this feels like proper next gen. Because a lot of the games in between the launch and then felt like games that could be on the 32X or on the Jaguar, and Resident Evil was that first one. And Final Fantasy VII was a game that was, it just felt like a fancy version of a 16-bit RPG that I'd played the wheels off and didn't really have any meat on the table. So for me, my nostalgia for it is low. I'm interested to give it a go because it plays more like the Final Fantasy 15, which I've played and loved in this year. I've played some games this year, by the way.
Yeah, same. 7 remake, I think you'll find it very small compared to 15. The story is really good and the characters are very, very likable. You can see why they were a big hit back in the day. To me, I think 15's a better game. But we've got to remember, with 7, this is part 1 of maybe 2, 3, 4 parts. And they have made some changes, apparently, because I've not played the original. The ending leads us to believe there's going to be some slightly different changes in the next part. Really nicely done. Combat's a lot of fun. The
thing is, I don't mind the turn-based. As I said, I'd played many a 16-bit RPG, and I've recently, this year, I played through the epic that's Final Fantasy 13, which is like a jazzed-up turn-based. You know, it really is as cheeky as like slapping that really old-school mechanic in front of these wonderful visuals. So I'm not adverse to it, but my understanding is 7 is complete Final Fantasy 15 combat.
Yeah. I mean, 16 is now a PS5 exclusive for probably however long, maybe a year. Rimrock, we're going to see that this year. But I think, it'll get delayed more.
I'll tell you, it's a good job your parole's over because you're drinking at 11 o'clock in the morning. I know it's been a tough time with Rick in the cell, but you've just thrown your whole podcasting setup on the floor.
I'm sorry.
You're going off mid-air to speak to Lionel about the litigation involved in you having this extra parole, which we all appreciate. But one wonders if the 3 spectral apparitions that visited you during the Christmas period really had that much of an effect.
Oh, they did. They did. I've changed my ways. I now give to one charity.
Wow. That's significant. So I think that probably covers off all the big games that we feel needed to be talked about.
I think that it's been an absolutely fantastic year for gaming.
I completely agree.
Not a good year in the rest of the world, but it apparently this year, video games has made more money than sport or film. And my wife was like, well, that seems an unfair argument because of like neither of those two have had a particularly great year because of the restrictions that are in place. I was like, yeah, but it goes to show how popular they are. And we've seen some brilliant stories told, graphical boundaries.
I see why you like Big Rick as your wife now, because he puts up a valid argument.
He does. Intelligence as well as brawn.
And beauty, and brains, beauty, and brawn. Everything you could ever want from a man.
He's the full package.
He is, yes. I misjudged him. I misjudged him.
Yeah.
Give him my best.
You called him a mindless thug NPC lookalike.
I did.
You did. Yes. You did. It hurt his feelings, that did.
Well, I didn't know that he had feelings, so I didn't know he had them to hurt. But now I know that he's a lot deeper. You know, I looked in and saw a puddle. When actual fact, I was seeing my own reflection. He was a well. He was much deeper than was originally originated. So, apologies to Big Rick.
Okay. Well, closing comments. I think fantastic. Just like you, I've played a lot of games this year.
I've played an awful lot of PlayStation 3, I have to admit. The whole Assassin's Creed trilogy, Final Fantasy 13 was 60 hours. We'll say the whole, I played all the Assassin's Creed up to Syndicate before I fell off the wagon. I've played Miles Morales. I've played Last of Us Part 2. I've played Ghost of Tsushima. I've played all of Cyberpunk. I've played...
I think that's...
there's loads of games that I've chunked through. I played through all of Grand Theft Auto 4 again.
I see that had a graphical mod the other day that made it look absolutely phenomenal.
What, 4?
Yes, 4, not 5, 4.
Still the best Grand Theft Auto, yeah. Well, that mod doesn't work unless you're one of the PC master race, so, that is what it is.
Well, are we moving on to the boot?
Well, we're not going to do Stingray's boot. We're going to leave it.
No new releases.
No, there's no new releases. In the listener's Stingray, obviously, Lionel slid a piece of paper under my nose that said that you're legally obliged to skip Stingray's boot. So, me and Bobby,
I believe you're doing a Christmas bumper one, aren't you?
That was meant to be today, but obviously, with Bobby not here and your contract being several pages long, well, I say several pages. I thought you'd give me a sheet of A4 to print the script on it. In fact, when I opened it up, it was full of your cross-section legal clauses. He said, just to give you the headlines, George, no boot, make him sound good, usual stuff. I was like, yeah, no problems. What, no Stingrays? Well, there's no new releases, George, have checked, but certainly no looking through people's Christmas pickups. I was like, all right, that means I have to cover them in January when they're going to be a little bit sort of stale. I don't really care.
Before we close it,
he doesn't care.
Before we close out, instead of doing what we're going to be playing, because it'll be the same as what we were playing, what are you looking forward to next year in gaming in general?
I'm looking forward to seeing some games that make the Series X and S and the PS5 sing like a newborn thrush in a bush. Because at the minute we're just seeing PlayStation 4 and Xbox One Series X games.
You've got Demon's Souls sat there. I don't know what you're waiting for.
I'm playing my beloved PlayStation 3, friend. I need to get Batman finished.
When you go from Batman Arkham Origins to Demon's Souls...
Well, that's one of the reasons. When I played PS3 all the way up on the run-up to the PS5, and then I was looking at stuff like Miles and Astrobot, and I was like, oh my goodness gracious me. And Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I was like, this looks incredible. Whereas I think if I'd come hot off the PlayStation 4 into it, I wouldn't have been so wowed. So there is benefits to playing a 2-generation-old console.
True. Very, very building yourself up for the next generation. Wow. Get the graphic enhancer on, curtains drawn.
It's the only way I play.
Get the settings right. Play it in cinematic, not performance because it doesn't really make
When
that
you
much.
say get the settings right, does that mean you've took your brand new 4K TV and just ramped the brightness and contrast up to 100? You're like, that looks great. Like, no.
I did some research on Cyberpunk and got the settings right on that, and it made a big difference. I implore anyone to search for that if you're playing on a next gen console. Have a fiddle. I mean, you can do it on PS4 and Xbox, but you really want to fiddle with the HDR settings and get those right. There are obviously many videos or forums to discuss which are the best settings for that.
I think
but
from memory, a couple of episodes ago, I had it at 900, 200, and either
the
1
other
or
one.
2.
Yeah, I think it's 1.5. But yeah, it's definitely worth fiddling with those because it just gives it that little bit more of a pop on the screen and turn some of the like the film grain and stuff like that off because it makes it look a lot better game.
I think stylistically, I know what they were going for, but the filter is a little bit like the Kurosawa filter in Ghosts. Like, yeah, it's cool to have it on every now and then, but to get the modern experience, you want it off.
You're missing out on some great stuff.
What are you looking forward?
Is there any particular game? Any particular?
I'm looking forward to Stray on PS5, that cat adventure, which piqued my interest at the reveal. I'm looking forward to Straight Out the Guns. I'm looking forward to Returnal. I'm looking forward to Ratchet and Clank, I suppose. I'm looking forward to seeing what the Xbox studios have been working on. I'll be absolutely honest. I'm very intrigued. They've got some major talent there. I don't think we're going to see any games in 2021, but I think we're going to see lots of reveals about what they are working on, teaser trailers a little bit more. We might see some footage of Fable, which...
Footage of Perfect Dark as well would be good.
Yeah, I mean, we're fans of those franchises. We've followed them for a long time. We've had all the games. Is that the thing that's going to turn us back on? Possibly. What next? From Nintendo, God only knows. Probably a cardboard parrot that you can stick a Joy-Con in and it talks to you.
Zelda 35th anniversary, which hopefully going to reveal some cool stuff. Bayonetta 3.
I was looking back at that. Last time Zelda had an anniversary and they're on a bit of a sticky wicket, they just put out all the games on GameCube under emulation.
We're always.
Is that what we're going to get on the Switch? But if they do that, they probably realise at the time they needed the goodwill. Now they need the sales. They're not going to give you Ocarina time and for free, are they? Now that's not how Nintendo works now.
No, it needs to be another big year for them. It probably will be. Hopefully, they've got some like PlayStation. I think they tried to have a monthly first party release, but it's difficult. It's very difficult, especially with production costs and like what people expect from a first party game. So I'd settle for one every 2 or 3 months with like a third party release chucked in between. That'd be nice. With the PlayStation brand, I'd be happy with one every 3 or 4 months because that price bracket's gonna kill me. But in terms of what I want to see next year, there's so much. Back for Blood, which is made by I think it's called Back for Blood. It's made by the Left 4 Dead team.
Oh, you've opened your Avery now you're back, or you got Lionel feeding your lesser spotted thrushed warbler?
Yes, he's just feeding the parrot. And that looks really interesting. I really enjoyed the Left 4 Dead games in multiplayer.
Yes, agreed.
Really good fun. So that'll be cool to try that. Horizon, Forbidden West, Ratchet and Clank. I'll be curious to try that. Returnal, as we discussed. Overwatch 2, we're going to hear more about that at BlizzCon in February.
Lionel, fetch me my pillow.
I'll not go on a tangent on that. I might even come back for another one-off special just to discuss that so I can put everybody to sleep.
Wow.
What else we got? There's some good stuff. We might see Final Fantasy and God of War, big titles like that. But I think we're going to see some delays as usual. It'd be nice to hear what Rockstar are working on other than GTA Online content. See some footage.
Words, you got to wonder, really, with Rockstar, one of the houses has left. One of their writers, one of the DJs Who's the DJ that's on the radio that's a bit edgy? He's actually one of the writers.
Steve Wright.
Not Steve Wright, you bloody donkey.
I love Steve Wright.
Laszlo's left. Laszlo was one of the writers. One of the Hauser brothers has left.
Maybe they've lost their way a bit.
There was a little rumours under the radar that it was all about cranking out the GTA online money-making thing, and one of them wanted to be more into writing stories rather than doing that.
I think we'll see a double box set of Red Dead 1 and 2, with one being the remake, and it'll be next gen. That'd be really cool. Love to see that. But I think it actually...
Well, both getting the next gen ray tracing upgrade and the
I think that will
remake
happen,
using the two assets. Yeah, I think... And that would be cool, really, because... although they're numbered the wrong way around. So,
I would play through 2 again and then go straight into 1. I think that'd be quite enjoyable, especially if they had a few little scenes just to flesh out some of those characters from number 2.
Well, if they were to do that, they probably need to drag some of the story missions into the other side of the map. Otherwise,
yeah.
But then again, if it's a very local story, it's a very local story. It's how it is, The world's massive, but your life probably takes place in 2 or 3 counties or one state the whole of your life.
I think they could do them as like optional side missions, like maybe visit some of the characters who are still alive from 2, or you can just go see them like you could at the end of number 2, where as John, you can go and visit them and see how their life's progressed since leaving.
One thing I thought was a bit of a shame in the end of Red Dead 2 when you're playing as John. It would have been nice to be able to, and I don't know why they didn't do this, and I don't know why they don't do this in online, is to be able to like rustle sheep or cows, bring them back to your place, get them to get like not a massive breeding mechanic, but just have so many in a field for so long, and you get some new cows appear, and then you can split them off with your horse, and then sort of weave them down to is it Valentine? And put them in the pens for sale, and big bing, you get your money. And, you could have just lived that farmer lifestyle for ages, and it would have felt very real getting up in the morning, because I remember you had to take the wheat to them and chop up the wood and all that sort of ramble.
Yeah.
If you could have had that, it would have made you feel more grounded and more, the house building scene, as good as it wasn't interactive enough. It was basically a cutscene with a really cool tune. And possibly a bluebird that could have been Arthur.
The spirit of Arthur Morgan, yeah. Agreed, yeah. Again, it's that balance of what market they're trying to appeal to and probably how much time they had. There's always so much when they build such an open...
I would say the market they're appealing to bought the game and played the game all the way through and loved every single aspect of it. There is a certain element of the people that bought it and made it a massive success as it was, shot a few people within 2 miles of the camp, put it down because it was boring.
Yeah.
And your uncle's got it next to his PlayStation 4. What did you think to that game, Uncle? Yeah, a bit boring, wasn't it? Shot a few people and got in a fist fight and shattered Lenny twice, and they turned it off. That's kind of where people are at with Rockstar games. And that one in particular, RDR2, you were walled off from the open world for ages, really. I mean, you could go off and explore it, but the story didn't drag you down to Valentine for quite a long time.
No, absolutely.
So I can see people going, I've had enough of this.
Do you think we'll see any hardware releases? Maybe PSVR 2, Switch upgrade?
I think PSVR 2 would be a good idea. They didn't really integrate PSVR, although when I've used PSVR with the 5, it's worked. First off, I struggled, but then I rebooted the console and everything worked seamlessly. It didn't seem to want to work straight away, but I was plugging it in while it was on, so maybe that was my fault.
Rumours are the Sony London studio are actually working on a non-VR game, because they've had quite a few years now of working on VR titles, and apparently they're working on a multiplayer PS5 game.
A multiplayer game.
Yes, I know you don't like, but...
I want a Blood and Truth sequel, I'll be honest with you. I thought that was great. But
that's a rumour anyway. It could turn out to be that's what they are working on. Could be working on both if they're a big enough studio.
We don't do rumours and we don't do leaks.
I'm interested to see where we get any add-ons for games like Last of Us Part 2 and Cyberpunk.
Well, we're going to get the multiplayer add-on, aren't we? Which should give that a whole new lease of
yeah.
life.
Same with Cyber. I don't know whether the problems are going to delay Cyberpunk's multiplayer, but that might be popular. I don't know.
I don't know what they could do with it because, he doesn't do the combat particularly well.
I find the gunplay quite good. It's harder than your average shooter. I don't think
gunplay's quite good, but it's not certainly good enough to sustain a multiplayer community.
Yeah, I think it needs to be a bit slicker. Maybe I was hoping maybe as I progress the stats that it'll become easier, but I don't feel that's going to be the way.
I doubled down on the pistol, and I had a revolver that
yeah
headshot, boom, poof, boom, poof, just channeled all my stats into that, and I felt like I was like a private eye detective Harry kind of guy. I had the story going in my head that V was, and I had this awesome pistol.
I bet you bought the trench coat as well, didn't you?
Like no. I always wore the jacket,
the samurai jacket.
I've got. No, it was it was the yellow punk jacket. I had a picture of a punk drawn on the back of it. I had the Big Trouble in Little China T-shirt.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that yet. I had that the whole time. You can find different versions of it which have got higher armor. So I had the highest armor one I could find. I had the highest armor yellow punk jacket I could find. I varied the jeans between combats. I finally managed to ditch the white baseball cap, which is the only baseball cap you can get your hands on for absolutely ages. And finally, I got a Johnny Silverhand samurai cap. Cool. Because you find a fan of his from 50 years ago who's like got loads of his merch, and I bought the hat and some records, which ended up being completely pointless.
The records are just junk, aren't they? You can't use them.
Well, you can buy some that look different, and I really got nothing from it. I think there is a trophy or an achievement where you can own all of Johnny Silverhand's artifacts. So you can get his gun, you can get his car, you can get his clothes. Or
that gun is OP as well. I did it in like the bit where spoilers.
Oh yeah. Well, there's also you don't know about this, and I only found out about it the other day. There's a talking gun. So like got its own.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it might be worth looking up because you're early enough in the game where you could go get it and then play through the game with it. But it's got its own AI. Nice. So you don't ever tell it to change its profile, and it's sort of like it's a smart pistol, but it's got its own AI, so it talks to you. Which I was like, oh, wow, that's fantastic. I wish I'd found that, early doors and then had it with me the whole time.
Cool.
But a little bit of something. So other than that, Tom, it's kind of fitting in a way that Bobby's had some issues. And don't worry, everyone, Bobby is fine. But just not going to be able to do this show this week. Hopefully back to normal next week. Tom, it seems fitting that we end the year me and you, game of the year, best game of 2020. I've enjoyed having the pleasure of your company. I'm sure you've enjoyed the extra hours of freedom. Probably chomping at the bit to get back to Big Rick. Although that's going to mean more incarceration. We'll read you a letter out next week. Probably don't feel right with you doing your
yes. Save that for next week.
Excalibur story right now. So we'll save that for next time. And I would say, unless you've got anything to impart to the fans, some emotional sort of tearful farewell, which you never got to do on air because you've been arrested and visited by spectral apparitions. I don't know.
Well, I just wish everyone a happy new year. I hope 2021 is going to be a better year for a lot of people. Looking forward to some fantastic games that we've got on the horizon. And thoroughly enjoyed coming on today. And everyone take care.
All right. Well, if they want a little bit more Tom, they can always go back through the now massive back catalogue of episodes. They're not timestamp centric, so it's not as though it's like, you got to watch the XYZ episode. There's ones in there, the history of the SNES, all these old consoles. There's the history of all these different gaming franchises. There's the best gaming protagonists. There's the gaming soundtracks and history of movie games and all that other ramble. And there's plenty to look forward to in 2021. We've got a whole host of content lined up.
Our video games art, one of our
video games art, yeah, absolutely.
Episode, that one.
And some of the more recent ones, like the Cyberpunk one, where you get a deep dive behind the scenes.
Very popular show.
And the Ghost of Tsushima episode, which is everything you need to know for the first 20 minutes of your game, playing a little bit of history of the making of the game. So with that all being said, thank you to everyone for another year of listens. We really appreciate it. The fact that someone other than our own parents want to listen to us warble on for 2 hours about video games is beyond a miracle as far as I'm concerned. And with that said, Tom, I'll say that's all we have time for this week. Listeners, always thank you for your time. I look forward to the pleasure of speaking to you again next week. Until then, happy gaming. Remember, there's nothing wrong with being given the unofficial controller. It's what you do with it that counts. See you, Tom.
See you, mate.
Hi, it's George here from the Unofficial Controller podcast. Just taking a moment to, first of all, thank you for listening. It means a hell of a lot to us. Secondly, every week we bring you free content, the latest news, the new releases, a feature of note, normally something to do with games or gaming past, be it one of our history of documentaries or an insight into the industry itself, or how games have affected us as people. Well, yes, we incorporate you, listeners, into that. All we ask is that you drop a little comment on our post on social media and you can get featured on the show. Hey, do you know what? You may even win a prize. The only charge for this is £0, 0 pence, $0. That's right, no money. But all we ask is that you like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you found this show. And if you're feeling a little bit cheeky, tell a friend, get them to do the same. We have a Discord that's free for you guys to all join in and get involved in. And the community on Instagram and Twitter is alive and thriving. So don't be a lonely gamer. Make yourself known. Thank you. And now it's time to begin this week's entertainment. Take care, guys.